Matt, you're on mute.
Thank you, Chris,
There you go.
and welcome everyone. Welcome to Guard 2024. And right now, this is really kind of exciting to show you what's going on and what our development team has been doing. And Guard 2024, Guard Plus 2024 is a product that we created as a result of our audit and compliance needs in terms of how we actually process information from our various security clients. And we also make it available in the Azure Marketplace as a standalone product. So you too can take advantage of this. But a little bit about that, it just so everyone is aware, this meeting is being recorded. And if you do not want to be recorded, then what we need to do is exit. And then later on after the session, you can actually watch our posting of the material on YouTube and be able to go through it at your own leisure. Today's presentation, we're going to have Chris is going to be doing a demo in terms of Guard Plus. He's going to bring you up on the feature sets that give you an idea of where we are, where it came from, but also what's more important, he's going to talk about what's coming down the pipeline and also give you a really in-depth view of Guard Plus, which is really exciting. So a little bit for those who don't know who KAMIND. We are basically a cloud-first company. We're also one of the 42 partners in the US that is a direct reseller of GCC high licenses. We're also a managed partner with Microsoft. And we're also, in terms of capabilities and everything else you heard on the defense front, we have CMC, we have CCPs on staff, and we're really targeted in terms of how to actually make sure we put the necessary security pieces in place to make sure that everyone's doing the right thing. And Guard Plus, as we come through and look about what Guard Plus is, it came out of a lot of actions and activity that we've been doing since 2019. But before we actually drive in, I'm going to actually pass it over now to Chris. Chris, why don't you take it away, and why don't you give us a view what is Guard Plus, and also talk a little bit of feature set.
Yeah, do you want to just move it forward a page? I'll let you keep the deck and then I'll take over when I actually do the demo. Thank you, Matt. So Guard Plus has existed as a product for longer than I have been with KAMIND. That's a little over 2 years now, but it has always existed in the background. It was our way to help clients see the evidence that yes, their environment is secure. These are the issues that we are working on, or these are the issues that they need to work on. It covered their Azure, it covered the endpoints, it covered secure scores, but it was a very manual effort. So about a year and a half ago, we began to automate that. And just around November last year, we finally began to offer it into the Azure Marketplace where clients can subscribe to it directly. And it's all fully automated. It then goes into their environment to get those scores and to get the recommendations. So what is it? It provides a weekly IT secure score. It's focused for management who are trying to understand what is the most important security posture event that they need to address, because a lot of times, we'll have well-intentioned techies who believe that this little thing that they just heard about it is the most important thing. But what this does is it gives a much higher view and helps you understand what it is. It also tracks your score, so each week it'll log your scores, whereas Microsoft will tend to retire those scores usually after 90 days, and you won't be able to then look back at time to on one hand cheer yourself on for the improvements that you've made, but also if you're looking for insurance, if you're looking for some sort of compliancy, it's all there. It's really all there that you would need for the insurance provider and your compliance partners to help them see, how good or how insecure your environment is. But at least it can help them see that you're working towards a better future. It covers the endpoints. It covers the operating systems and software. It covers Azure Cloud. It works with the Microsoft 365 security products. It goes into the event details, and it does work with the compliance baselines that are definitely key cornerstones that you're there. And it'll also point out things that you may not have known that you need to deal with. If you could go to the next page. So this is the introduction page, and we'll show it to you. It is a dashboard that gives you a view of all the four main scores: the Microsoft Secure Score, the Exposure Score, the Defender for Cloud Score, and your device score. If you notice, like the device score, it's a bit flat, whereas the exposure score jumps up and down. Well, that is actually the reality way it happens is you might have people in your office who don't reboot their laptop, or maybe your policies aren't in place that will enforce patching or antivirus updates, and that's what you will see. But what you hopefully will see is your scores will gradually be going up. In the one that's the exposure score in the second from the left, that's the only one that Microsoft actually says your exposure score should be lower. And in fact, as you can see, the trend for that score is it's actually going down, meaning I don't know which client this was, but they've actually began to deal with the vulnerabilities in their environment, and slowly their score is actually going down. As the first score, their score is slowly going up over time. Next slide, Matt. The way we envision this tool working is the tool provides you your scores, the evidence that you need, the vulnerabilities that you can plan at, and it shows it to you in such a way that you can make a choice which one is the best one to go after, which one will improve your score the most, so that you're not dealing with a minor one that somebody thought was important but really wasn't that important. You can deal with the big ones first and then later work on those smaller ones. It'll help you plan the remediation. Most of the scores give you actual detailed information on where and what to do to improve that one. You unfortunately need to do the implementation on that. You have to do that, but we give you the steps for that. And then the score gets pulled, the data gets pulled every week. And if you have made an adjustment, your score will get refreshed, and your score, and like in this case, it will start to improve, and you'll get your next list of things to go over. We've got some clients who've actually taken it to heart and really ratcheted down on their environment and really improve those scores so that they actually begin to see a flat line in a positive sense, that their scores are in a good semi-permanent state. The next slide, please, Matt. So again, this is just a different way of seeing that wheel. What we estimated is that, what if we had to do this on a weekly basis to capture the scores, all of the scores that we capture, it's about 4 to 6 hours each week. To capture the events, it's about 1 to 2 hours. To capture DLP events, it's another hour. The recommendations, to catalog them and bring them together, you're looking at another 2 to 3 hours. And then your access scores. So when we did this about 2 years ago, we were looking at almost I want to say a halftime, one person halftime doing this for all of our clients. And that was all of our clients, but it was a tremendous amount of effort to do it. So, we took it to implement on our own side, and then we're offering it outside. In addition, it includes a SQL, well, we provide the SQL database where the data is stored securely in its own tenant, in its own environment. It's been pen tested multiple times each time it passes, as well as the Power BI dashboards that the website uses. So in short, you're getting a lot of automation, a lot of information that you'd be spending a lot of time on your own to work with. We're estimating here it would cost between 5 to 7K a month to try to do this full pool of data and presentation of recommendations on your own. So Matt, the next page, and then I will take over on the demo. So our last presentation, I believe, was November. We've been busy this year providing additional features, and those features are always included. You get them when you get the product. One of them is actually something that is both NIST and CMMC required. So you have, let's just say you have 100 users out there, um, and you might know them, but you might not know if they are actually still employed. At 100 users, you probably would know. But if you're working in the higher numbers, we provide the ability, and I'll give a demonstration of it, to audit the users. And this would be a person such as your HR or a department head would be able to audit the users and provide an independent report to either your insurance companies, because they do require that you have that control in place, that paper, that old school paper, effort. Here we've automated it in the system that you can audit your users, you can audit the roles that those users have, and you can audit the groups and then create a report that says, yes, every month, the government requires it monthly at a minimum. You can use this report and say, yes, we have audited our users, we do it, here's the monthly, and here are all the reports of that. The next thing that we did was a lot of our clients are wanting to work inside of Azure government. Most of us, like me, with my tenants, it's in commercial environment, but there are a lot of clients who are required to be inside of the Azure Gov, and we wanted to provide the same service there. So we rolled up our sleeves and we got it done, and we can now work inside of the Azure government, providing the same assessments and scoring there. We do take feedback from clients, and one of them was the data loss prevention reports doesn't have enough detail. Fair point. We took that, and I'll give a little demonstration of that. What we've added is not just who sent out sensitive data, but who they sent it to. Uh, we were surprised about the amount of data. Microsoft does a really good job retaining that data, but it's really hard to get to. We provide it in a nice way that you can see, and then you can then go to that person and say, "Hey, might be better to encrypt those emails, or just be careful with them. Don't send them to Gmail, because once they're inside of Gmail or any of these publicly provided email services, well, it's not a good thing to have it inside of Gmail. We've also provided a risky user report, which was also revealing, and we're about to release conditional access, but I'll give you a preview of that. Conditional access policies are complicated, and a lot of people are not even aware of them. So we've presented the conditional access policies in such a way that you can actually see who has a policy, who doesn't have a policy, where those policies are, and help you increase your security. And last but not least, a couple months ago, we released the endpoint compliance policies, and I'll be demonstrating that as well, so that you can also help secure your endpoints. So Matt, I'm going to take over and present a few of those. So let me just jump over. So the first one is you guys can see my screen? Perfect.
Yep.
So the first one is the audit. So we've provided an additional account. We've provided an auditor. In this case, I've logged into the portal as the KAMIND auditor. A normal user would just see the home tab, the accounts, the users, and the tenants and the reports. But for this particular user, they have an additional right, and they can audit the users. And what they can do is here's a list of all the users. And I'm going to just choose myself here. I'm going to say yes, Chris is definitely still here. Looking at people on the call, we've got Matt. So I'm going to say Matt, JKLM, there we go. Matt is there. Just for the purpose of this, I'm just going to leave it simple and say that the company only exists, but you can select them all and then unselect them. By submitting this, you are then putting into the system that the auditor with this user report is submitting it. Yes, I do want to submit that report. And it then gives me the result of the report saying that all of those were approved aside from the ones that I haven't. I just passed it by too quickly. You can print this report out. You can put it to an Excel sheet, PDF, print it out, or you can copy the contents. I'll go back to the audit reports, and this is the one that I just created. And here's the unique ID for that audit report. I created on the 16th of May. I can do the same thing for, I can do it for each of the tenants. Currently we have our own Gov tenant, and I can do it on the KAMIND tenant. I'm going to go back to the KAMIND tenant. I can do a group or a role report. Let's go for the groups because as you may know, a lot of the privileges and access that people have is based on groups. So I'll just call it group report, start the audit. It then pulls the information. It will take a second. It pulls that across, and like the other ones, I can select them all. Uh, I can then choose them individually. And what's important is these things never get lost. But also, I want to make it clear that this is not an interaction with the system. This is just a audit report that is held for your, your compliance, um, and insurance purposes. I'm going to skip this and let it load. We'll go on to the next section. I'm going to just keep letting it load. So the next one was the Azure Gov. What we realized on the Azure Gov side, it's if we go over here to the home, this is my view as a partner. I can view the Gov clients. It was a little bit of a work. The data is exactly the same inside of here. I just want to look at KAMIND Core. But the data is the same. The data is this. It's the same structure of the data. It's just coming from a different group, and we keep it secure. We keep it there, and we make certain that all of the CMMC requirements are kept on that. The data loss prevention is nice. I'm just was presenting that here. So what we do is I'm just using an example. They didn't do anything wrong. I just want to make that clear. But you can see we've got two types of content. Earlier, we were just presenting these charts, who sent out information and what type it was. But what we've added as a requirement is who the information was sent to. Now, it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it was triggered, and we can follow up on that to see that, was this okay? And then, like looking on this one, yes, in fact, this was a legitimate thing. It was fine. It didn't go to a Gmail, so we're all fine there. One of the other features we had was added recently was the risky users. And I'm going to go back to just to us. So it's looking at your Azure Active Directory and seeing was there an odd behavior that didn't really normally happen. And what we can see is, well, we've looked at it. It's been remediated. It's not an issue. But there are other ones where we can see, we can present to you. There was one where a user logged in from Greece, and the user wasn't in Greece. We were able to, the client, in this case, the client was able to say yes. In fact, that person was, um, uh, they weren't hacked. It was a lot actually worse than that. So we had to block their account. We had to help the client block their account. But it'll put those clients across here. It'll give a status. Is it remediated? Is it still at risk? And what the status of them are. We felt that this was significant enough to see which users are at risk. This particular user, when you look at it, they performed a secure password reset, which is completely okay. Um, we don't even need to talk to them about that. But if we're seeing like multiple logins from multiple locations, well, then we would either deal with that directly, or we would talk with the person and say, "Hey, are you using a VPN? Is that why it's coming across this way?" Two of the other ones, I'm going to move on to our conditional access policies, which is relatively new. Um, we didn't really present this before. We have quite a significant number of them. So what it does is it shows you on the last couple of days which ones have been updated or which ones have been inserted. Um, you can see each one of these conditional access policies, and it does filter down. So it shows you which groups and which users are inside of that. Or one of the requirements we had from a client was, well, I don't know about this particular user. This particular user, we did set up a conditional access policy, and I do remember it. She went on vacation into Ireland. She wanted to continue to work, and yes, there was a policy set in place just for her to enable her to work from Ireland for a specific period of time. And then it was removed after she completed that trip. So it's the you can look at these inside of Microsoft, but it is looking through a haystack for that needle. Here, it brings it all together in a much more logical way, where you can choose which direction do you want to go from the bottom. Do you want to look at Ireland and wonder why is Ireland in here? What about India? Why is India in here? And then we can see, okay, it's been disabled. Or the Ireland one, well, it's enabled, and we might need to deal with that. Last but not least, before we go back to that one, is we've introduced two new features. So inside of Intune, or the endpoint management portal of Microsoft, you have the ability to create the policies. These are the policies such as, if I let's go to a Windows version of it. So on Windows 10, do you have BitLocker? And is it enabled? What's the minimum operating system level? Is password block? Do you block simple password like password? Uh, what are the variables for each one of these? Is a password required? Yes or no? Is a password is a password required to unblock from idle? Is it required to have a healthy device report? Is secure boot enabled? Is storage encryption enabled? And when was the last modified date? Similar for Mac and going on to iOS. Each one is, they call them, each device uses different terminology, but what we've done is we've created a scoring and we pull that data across. We do have some clients that actually have really, really, really super conservative approaches to this, and they have really locked down their environment and they get green all the way. You're where you're at, and you're trying to help your employees, your colleagues, to get more secure. So each time you introduce a new policy, I would expect your scores to go up. So we're going to go back to this, and it's still loading. I'm going to try this one again. While that's working, I'm going to, it has taken a while. While that's working, I'm going to go over what we've got coming so that you're aware of what's coming down the road. And that would be, Matt. So what we're looking at is, while we have the compliance policies, we're looking at also getting the endpoint policies, so software configuration. Email forwarding is an issue still. A lot of companies we know might still allow an individual to forward their email addresses. I'm not judging the policy. I'm just saying we're going to help you be aware of that. You might have some employees who have enacted email forwarding. We're also going to provide the ability to audit reports. And most importantly, is we're going to start working through the CMMC requirements. We've already started to work on a lot of them, but we're going to go through a majority of the ones that we can deal with, and we'll start listing those out. But that is a real that's going to be a real breakthrough for us to get the CMMC requirements that will give you the evidence you need. Matt, I am going to give it back to you because I think I might have an issue on the group. Oh, nope. Here it is. Here are the groups. So these are all of the groups. It's a type of audit. We have the various accounting groups. I'm going to look at the one that I know that I'm in, which is the dev group. You see, we do have a lot of groups. There's our dev projects, and I'm a member of it, so I can approve it. You could assign this to the individuals. Me as the lead developer, I can approve. Barbara, Tulasi. I will skip Dave. I'll approve Matt, and I'll approve Brian. And that's, if you can see, you could assign it to the person who's responsible for it and they only deal with their section. They would give it an appropriate name, dev group, they would submit it. It would go across, and then we would be able to look at the audits again. And we've got those, and I can go back and look at this and print it out and submit it. Matt, I think I'm done.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, a lot of the controls that we putting things in place from a CMC perspective. So we're looking at, and it really the driving factor is how do we actually look at how do we actually reduce labor? So when you look at some of the requirements of NIST 800-171, for instance, you'll know like the control ACE, the AC control for account credibility. There's this whole concept of that NIST has what we call identified users, which is all the employees, the organization plus contractors, and then you have authorized users. And then associated with under the AC control, the 3.1 control, is you have a lot of areas associated. What groups are they part of? What other pieces are they part of? And when we actually spend a lot of time talking with, I'm on assessor, for instance, and talking with other folks in the assessment community, the failure that people have is really around identification. That's usually where the number of the poems that currently got written. And if we bring this back into what's requirement on the commercial side, that you have like HIPAA or high trust, for instance, it's the same concept. You have the identified users and who's authorized and what the process and policies put in place for that. And when we look at the labor associated to generating those reports and what you have to do, and at least on a minimum monthly basis, but reality is you have to do it whenever you have a change. You basically, that takes a lot of manpower. So you want to put the necessary processes in place to be consistent. So that's what we're really doing with Guard Plus. We're trying to structure it for so that it can actually address those areas that people actually look at in terms of what they actually need and what actually generates and reduces labor. And when Chris's and his team put together in Guard Plus, and we started this number of years ago, we looked at how we're collecting the various pieces of information, how we're actually putting all that together, how we're actually bringing the framework for it. And then, as of course, the things that doing is that we're also looking in terms of how to actually enhance some of those things in terms of with Security Copilot AI, for instance, and how you actually build it to make sure it becomes a critical tool for the analysts. And also, from a real practical stance, is how do we actually use this to actually save labor for everyone that was working the project? So one of the things is on the screen, for instance, we have, this is just a snapshot of the audit reports and the audit trails that you actually have in terms of so you get an overview of what's going on. So you don't have to spend hours going through different types of, the environment and figuring out where all the different menus are, what they really mean. So we're trying to put more intelligence on this process to give you a better perspective on it. When you look in terms of what's the impact that Chris did on the demonstration, you can actually see when you look in terms of the score, what really happens and how things change over time. And it's very important that you want a long-term view of data. And with Guard, way we structure with the KAMIND Guard Plus, it's basically collects data. So as once you start the process, we keep the data. And from a Microsoft standpoint, the Microsoft really only keeps data for 90 days. We keep it forever how long that you have the service, you have actually putting the service in place. And that way you can actually look and correlate with changes in the environment, and you can understand what the impact is. Now on the screen, for instance, you have, like we have the arrow in this other on the exposure core with a 0-day impact. What happens here is that we had a 0-day impact like in one particular client, and you can actually see the score goes up. And if you look in terms of on the right hand side of the screen, you will see a correction that was made. So you can actually, when you actually start looking at these scores and understanding what they actually mean. And scores are relative to the organization. You can, the way Microsoft structured scores is it's basically, they have metrics you can measure against other businesses in the organization. But from an efficiency and a policy standpoint, no two organizations are the same. And the best way to actually tell your security structure is how you compare to how you were doing things earlier. So like in this case, we look at this 0-day, this one screen on the left-hand side, the exposure score, for instance. We initially started at 35 and see how the change went up to 64 in the impact. So you can actually go through and map in terms of events that you see. And when we actually manage the environments and using these tools and the other tools that we have, realistically, we see a 10 to 20% improvement in people's scores because they're being managed. And that's really the secret in terms of the managed security services and everything else, and what this tool actually provides you.
Hey, Matt, one of
So
the things that I wanted to also add is, oh, there you got it.
yeah.
No, you're ahead. You've got it. We do help on the we don't just leave the reports with you guys. We do give a few consultations at the beginning to help you understand where to go and how to prioritize it. So it can be a lot of data that you're going to get, but we do provide data collection and trying it first.
Correct. And so you get the pieces in place so that with Guard Plus on the commercial side, the price point starts at 450, on the government 750. But what we also have, we include in folks that actually have our security services, we actually provide you the security executive reports and go through this on a monthly basis so you can understand the pieces of it. We do have an option that you can actually have, that you can, if you want to have like you're not on our security services and you just want to actually take advantage of our security analysts, we actually have a program where you can actually have basically a monthly review. You can sign up for a monthly review process. So it's just another way, because we look at what we're trying to do is we're really trying to help you own the environment and help you secure the environment and integrate the Microsoft security tools to make sure the various pieces are there. So Guard Plus is a crucial tool to basically how you actually configure, drive, and manage your environment so you have the visibility into it. And when you get right down to it, it saves the managers and it saves the analysts time. And that's the biggest factor. And when I think Chris was not really highlighting how much time it took. He said it's realistically, it's if you have when we did this on the paper side, If you had a really good analyst that was collecting data, it was in the 4-hour time frame. If you had a new or junior analyst collecting data on this information, it would be between 1 to 2 days. So we would easily find by just doing the deployment of Guard Plus and collecting the data for us, we basically reduce the cost of our products and reduce the cost of our security services because we had the data there, and we can actually draw a correlation between events in the past, what's going on today, and also what the alerts and everything else. And then later on, we talk and we'll have another webinar later on this year talking about Security Copilot and what Security Copilot actually adds and how it actually adds that incremental view of how you actually migrate and manage data. And that's really the key things that you want to try to do. So how do you get started with this? It's very easy. It's in the Azure Marketplace. So if you look in the Azure, if you go to the Microsoft Azure Marketplace, you can Bing it and just look for Azure Marketplace. And then once you get into the Azure Marketplace, just search for Guard Plus. You'll find it, and it will show up right at the top. And then basically it gives you an overview of the product and everything else, and you can just click on it and start your process today. And for those that want to basically get ahead and have us help you through the process, the best way to do this is go submit a feedback for our free white paper on Guard Plus at www.kamind.com/feedback. And then just put a note in the comment that basically, hey, contact us and we'll reach out to you and help start your trial and get it in place. And with that, I'd like to open it up if anyone has any questions and with Chris and myself and see how the best way we can actually help you. So one thing, Chris, you mentioned in terms of like Guard Plus, uh, folks that are on subscription releases for the Guard Plus product, we actually slipstream all those updates into them. So they
Right.
constantly receive the updates. So once you're on the Guard Plus service, as we come up with new features, especially on the CMC compliance features, the NIST 800-171, you will get all those audit reports and ability to do those different functionality as we incrementally add additional capabilities on that.
That's correct, Matt. We do, and we definitely take feedback. We really want to make this a product that's useful, not just a lot of data that's interesting to play with. I love data and I love playing with it, but we also want ideas, and so we do take those ideas from various people who've given us recommendations. The DLP change, where we're not only able to see what DLP is being sent out and who sent it, but we can also see who received it. That was a requirement from a client. We picked it up and we said, yeah, that's a good idea. One of the requirements we're working on with the users is somebody says, I want to use the audit report, but can we use an Excel feed to load it, a CSV feed from our HR system? Yeah, we're going to add that into it. So we do take feedback, and it does roll into your environment seamlessly.
Yeah, and a good example on us going through the extra mile on the whole how do you actually use it through a certification process. As KAMIND goes through our own certification process for CMC in our pre-test and our future in our DIBCAP and our JVSA, we actually are using Guard Plus as a generate the necessary reports so you can show it through the assessors and show proof of execution. So a lot of things that we're doing in Guard Plus, we're designing and basically using it ourselves to make sure that it's basically meets the standards, meets the requirements that third-party assessors want to see. So in essence, kind of reduce the risk, because that's at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. How do we, as managers of businesses, reduce the risk for our organizations, keep our organizations secure, generate the necessary track record and the tracking to show that we have proof of execution, so that we've done our job, we've done the best possible way we can, and we have the evidence behind the show that we're doing it. So we talked about a lot of information. If there's, I'll see if there's any additional questions that people have. If not, then what we'll do is let's see, let me check the chat just to check if anybody has any questions on it. If not, then we'll give people another 20 minutes back in their hour.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And we should have the webinar posted in the by tomorrow, and probably most likely be by Monday. And then we'll send out links to everyone so they can get access to the data. Thanks again for attending.